Hello and welcome to Starts and Grafts. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Connor, and each week I'm joined by an emerging artist to discuss the highs and lows of forging a creative career during a global pandemic. My guest this week is a singer, musician and performer who is equally at home performing with an acoustic guitar as she is fronting a big band or performing with the likes of the BBC National Orchestra Wales. Prior to lockdown, she was a cast member of the West End production of Les Mis. Whilst COVID-19 forced the show to close, she hasn't let the pandemic grind her to a complete halt and released her debut album during the summer. Mairead Williams, welcome to Starts and Grafts. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So excited. This is my first podcast. So
really?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Very excited to be here.
Not a problem. I'm so glad that you've agreed to come on. You're someone that I wanted on the podcast for quite some time because we knew each other when we were at university.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted you to come on not only because I'm really interested in you as a musician and your music, but I'm really interested in you as a singer-songwriter and a musical theatre performer and how you balance the two different things.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you view them as two different things, or is it very much just part of who you are and it's one complete whole?
To be honest, I used to view them as two very separate things because I think when you're at school, you kind of think, I'll go to university to do one specific thing and I'll, stick to that. But then when you get to university or your next step after school, you kind of realise that there's lots of different people around you and lots of different interests starting to form. So initially I did separate them both. I thought my songwriting was something that I just did as a hobby on the side. And I thought that music and, performing was something that I would go into a bit more. But then you kind of find little opportunities in things. And I think my school particularly didn't really make it that obvious that you can have a career in songwriting or singing. So it was something that I discovered later on that, if you surround yourself with all these creative people, then you can actually merge both. And I think actor, musician is becoming a bit more of a popular thing now. There's a lot of plays and stuff that have musicians and there's specific courses for it now. So I do feel like both of them do go hand in hand, and being able to write songs and sing songs is something that definitely works well together.
No, I'm really excited to find out a little bit more about the two as we go on with the podcast. But I think a really good starting point is what I mentioned in the introduction, is that you released your debut album during the summer. Tell me a little bit more about the process behind that. And tell us the name of the album, actually.
It's called a Drefn, which means the way it is, or the order in Welsh. And one of the songs is called a Drefn, and it's about longing for family members you heard of, but you never got to meet. And so it's kind of like a celebration of life mixed with a lot of other influences as well. But yeah, I recorded it, I think it's just over a year ago. And I was meant to release it in April this year. But obviously things were a bit up in the air with the music industry, and still are obviously, but we didn't really know if it was the right time to release or not. So we thought we'd wait a bit, and then we got to August and we were right, we've got to release something now, because if we don't do it now, then it's kind of going to be old news, because I feel the songs were I've written them over the past 6 years.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, they were getting a bit
That's a really long period.
Yeah, I was getting a bit bored of them. I was I need to get them out and get the next lot going, really. So we made the decision to release them, and release them in August. And obviously I haven't been able to do any live gigs or anything, but a lot of different opportunities have come up, which has been quite interesting. We've done music videos for them, and hosted little, those Instagram giveaways that everyone's doing now.
So you spent a lot of time doing the social media kind of things and promoting it online because you've not been able to physically perform it for an audience.
Exactly, that's it. Yeah. And, doing the live streams and trying to find more creative ways of promoting it, like commissioned some Wales-based artists to like do artwork for the tracks and thinking outside the box with it, really.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, that was quite cool. Did like 10 different artworks, and it was nice to have that cross arts collaboration thing as well. Like this year hasn't been the type of year that you meet a lot of new people. But actually, looking back, there has been a lot of opportunities where I've contacted people on Instagram and I've actually met people that way, even though it wasn't in person, and like stayed in touch as well.
I think we've had to find new ways of connecting with people and meeting new people, and that's what I've enjoyed so much with the podcast is making new connections, revisiting old connections and friendships like, the ones that I've had with yours
Yeah,
and lots of my guests. And I think it's given a lot of people just that drive to revisit those connections, like I just said,
definitely.
and reconnect with people. And it's great that you've decided to do that online because you've not been able to do it in person.
Yeah, definitely. We've had a lot of thinking time, I think. Like new ideas have come and like you reconnect with people like yourself. And even though there's been a few restrictions this year, like it's just been nice to have that side of it as well, I guess.
It's brilliant that you've been able to do that cross art collaboration with somebody else from Wales. You're Welsh, as we've mentioned. I think I've mentioned that so far. But it's a really important aspect of the album, isn't it? Because the majority of it is written in Welsh. I think about 80% of it is.
Yeah.
Has it always been something that's really important to you to keep making music in what is your native language?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's my first language and I speak Welsh with my family and my boyfriend and stuff. So it's definitely a more natural way of singing for me, especially like growing up in primary school, we had a lot of singing stuff going on. So it's definitely the one that comes first. But weirdly, as I was growing up, I didn't listen to that much Welsh music. And it wasn't until maybe like GCSE that I actually realised, oh, there's so many artists out there performing in Welsh. I actually didn't know about them myself because either my parents maybe didn't listen to them or, yeah, I think as soon as I realised that, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I've got to, sing in Welsh. And also the record label, which is actually ran by one of my cousins.
Okay.
We speak Welsh to each other and it's primarily a Welsh language record label.
What are they called, Mared?
They're called Icaching Records.
Okay.
So even though it is, bilingual, I think a lot of the bands and artists are primarily Welsh. So that played a big role in deciding which songs I was going to put on the album as well. But more recently, I feel like I've got maybe like half and half. So a lot of my songs are in Welsh, but more recently I've been writing a lot more in English and trying to like find ways of like getting both languages in there, which can be quite awkward, but it's quite a fun thing to experiment with because I always feel like I don't want to shut anyone out. Do you know what I mean?
That's really fascinating that you've just said that because we went to university together, as I mentioned, and I've only ever heard you perform in English when you've been singing live in English language. But then to listen to your album and your singles and listen to you singing in Welsh, it's not a barrier to the listener at all. It's really interesting because the Welsh language,
Right.
it's so lyrical and it's still
Yeah.
so accessible, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's really nice to hear because that is literally like I'd hate to think of anyone like listening and being like, I don't understand a word she's saying. Like, I'd hope that it would, try and inspire people to maybe find out some meanings or, I don't know, listen a bit more. But yeah, that's very reassuring.
I tried to actually, ahead of the conversation, find out how to pronounce the title of the album. And I went on Google Translate to kind of find out what the deal is really. And I can tell you one thing, and it's that Google Translate does not do the Welsh language justice because the results that it came up with, I was just thinking, I can't repeat this because it will come across as offensive. But I think it's just really important. And it made me think as a listener how English language based my listening is.
Right, yeah.
In fact, you're the only artist really that I've properly explored that writes a lot of their music in another language. And I think it's something that I hope the listeners can have a listen to your music and really start to think about what a song is.
Yeah.
We can still really get into it and enjoy it when the lyrics aren't something that we can necessarily interpret in a certain way because it's our own language.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's something like a lot of people listen to like just instrumental music. So you can imagine it's just another instrument. You don't have to understand the words. You just interpret it your own way, like you said. So yeah, there's definitely something to be said about that, I think.
Because I think it's really interesting that you said you were like 16 at GCSE age when you thought, oh, maybe I can start writing songs in my native language, which is crazy, really. When it's what you use as part of your everyday, but it's never seemed feasible until that age that you could be creative creative and use it that way.
Yeah, it's really strange because I think that's quite a unique thing because I definitely know that Welsh music is more accessible now and like it's perceived as a cooler thing now than it was when I was in school. Because I know for a fact my brother, who's still in school, listens to Welsh playlists and that kind of thing. And I think it's changed, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But I also think it's definitely to do with like what your parents listen to when you grow up. And all my siblings are younger than me. So there was no one older that I could, take their music taste and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely something I feel like I've discovered myself, which is nice as well. And then made connections through that.
You're the trendsetter in the family then, by the sound of it.
Oh, God, no. I wouldn't say that.
Some of the tracks from the album have been played on BBC Radio Wales, haven't they?
Yeah, and BBC Radio Cymru, which is the Welsh, the only national Welsh language radio station there is. So yeah, that was cool. Over Again, one of the tracks was Track of the Week on BBC Radio Wales.
Oh, cool.
That was awesome. Yeah,
that's amazing
really cool.
support.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I do feel like the Welsh language music scene has been really supportive of stuff as well, because a couple of my tracks have been Tracks of the Week on BBC Radio Cymru as well. And yeah, I honestly like that royalty money is the only like stable money that I have coming in, even though it's like not that much.
Yeah.
But like the royalties for songs and plays and stuff is just something that you forget about. It isn't that much, but it's definitely the most consistent income I have at the moment. So
that's really fascinating that you say that, because I've not really thought about royalty money as a source of income, and it's not something that's come up on the podcast yet.
Right.
Did that play an influence in you deciding that you had to release it during this period?
To be honest, that all comes secondary, and I'm not very good at getting my like music business head on. And so I've tried to learn a bit more about that during lockdown. So it's very much a secondary thing. I release the songs and then I'm like, oh gosh, I need to like register it on PRS. And
Performers' Rights Society is a huge thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And things like Spotify don't actually pay that well. I read something the other day, actually. It was like the average songwriter needs like 22,000 plays to get 1 hour's worth of this country's minimum wage, I think it was.
That's insane, isn't it? Well, it's a time of year where everyone gets their Spotify on Wrapped.
Yeah.
I've seen everyone's been sharing like, all their favourite artists. And then I've seen some really good memes which have been like, your favourite genres. And then it says, pay artists real effing money.
Yeah.
People forget that. And it's great that Spotify makes music really accessible. But in a climate where people can't gig and get gigging money is such a huge part of being a musician these days, isn't it? But not being able to get that, it almost seems like these Spotify raps are a little bit of adding insult to injury, really, about how much people have been listening to your music and how little you've received from it.
Yeah, that is so true. And I know that Spotify have tried to like make an effort. They've put like you can add to your Spotify artist profile, you can add a little like kind of like a GoFundMe thing for yourself. And I just set one up because I was like, oh, may as well. Like, you never know, like some like really rich person might just decide one day that they want to PayPal me loads of money. But yeah, I got £5 through on my PayPal from my friend, and I was like, did you mean to send me this money? Like, because I haven't seen him in like a year, and I was like, this is really weird. Is he like repaying me for something? And then I messaged him. I was like, did you mean to send me £5, or is it like a backlash from like last year or something? And he was like, no, I just saw it on your Spotify, and I felt like being kind that day. So I was like, oh, it's really nice. I've got £5 on my Spotify thing. So thanks.
Oh, that's well nice.
I know.
I think we should listen to one of your tracks now.
Yeah.
Which track are we going to listen to?
So this song is called Pontiff, which means bridges in Welsh, and it's a song about building bridges between communities, cultures and art forms, which I think is more important than ever. And yeah, seeing as we've just been talking about the Welsh language, it is a Welsh language song, and yeah, enjoy.
Mae'n arannau ohono fi sydd yn perthyn i dros y llun. Nid croesi ffin oedd rhaid mwyn eu cyrraedd nhw, ond codi pont uwch ben a derbyn llif y dŵr. Codi pont fel i gered dros y bont a ddod at amau bach yn ôl. Codi pontiff a derfyn llif y dŵr.
So that was Mared with her track Pontiff. I really hope I pronounced that correctly for any Welsh listeners out there.
That was perfect.
Thank you. Get in. Thank you. So Mared, tell us a little bit about your musical inspirations and what feeds into tracks like the one we've just listened to.
So Pontiff is a bit more, I guess I was trying to channel my like inner jazz influences. I wouldn't say that I'm a jazz singer or anything, but while I was at university in Leeds, there was quite a big jazz scene in the city, and it kind of inspired me to learn a bit more about, you know, the harmonies and stuff. So I reckon that side of things, the jazz stuff, I'd listen to people like Leela James, like Leanne La Havas.
Oh, my favourite.
Oh, I absolutely love it. I had tickets to go and see one of her gigs recently, but obviously it got cancelled. Absolutely gutted.
She's done a few live streams, hasn't she? I think she did one at the Roundhouse in London. I wish I could have seen that.
Same. So yeah, I think Pontiff is a bit more jazz influence, and it's me playing the piano as well. So it was me trying to basically improve my skills as well.
Because you play on quite a few of the tracks, don't you? Do you play piano and guitar?
Yeah, so the main piano and the main, like, there's two mainly acoustic guitar tracks, and I play acoustic guitar on those, and then the rest of them I play piano for.
Amazing. So we just touched a little bit upon your jazz influences, but like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, musical theatre is a huge part of your life, and you were performing, weren't you, in Les Mis before the first lockdown hit?
Yeah.
What was that like as an experience to be performing in probably the most famous musical in the world?
Oh, it was honestly amazing. It doesn't feel like it happened now. It honestly feels like years ago. But honestly, doing like 8 shows a week, I honestly learned something out of every show, and I'd done 4 months of 8 shows a week. So we had the previews for a month, and then we had 3 months of doing the actual shows. And yeah, I was in the ensemble, which was really fun. Got to be totally different characters in every scene and every song. And I was also rehearsing for second cover of a character, Eponine, as well. And that was so fun, just being in the rehearsal room, getting to get to know that character and put my own spin on things. That was super fun.
So you got to do 4 months. How long were you supposed to be in the show for until COVID came along?
So I was contracted until this October in 2020, and then we had the option of renewing the contract as well, which we hadn't quite got to yet, but there was talk about it. So I was thinking, I'll probably sign on for another couple of months or however long the contract would have been. But yeah, so that was my year sorted pretty much.
But it's interesting because I've spoken to a couple of performers on the podcast who have been taking part in touring productions. So when lockdown came for them, they were kind of not stuck to one place and they could just go home. But you were performing week in, week out on the West End, and I'm guessing you had somewhere to live permanently in London. So did you spend that initial stay-at-home period in London, or did you go back home to Wales?
So once I heard that the show was going to be cancelled for a bit, and I think everyone was talking about a lockdown in London, I was like, right, I'm getting out. I don't want to be stuck in a house in London. So me and my boyfriend went to isolate first before going home to my family at my grandma's house. But she has her house is split in two. One part of the house is a holiday thing which she rents or does Airbnb and stuff. So we stayed in that part of the house because that was the only place that we had to isolate away from everyone. But we ended up staying there for 4 months because, well, there was a lockdown, and also it was really nice because we were in Anglesey, and I don't know if you've ever been, but it's so nice. There's so much greenery and the beach and stuff, and we're just a stone's throw away from
beautiful holiday spot.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of my family is originally from Anglesey or Ynysmore. Yeah, that's why we stayed. It was just too nice. The Wi-Fi was great, which I knew if I'd gone home to my family, it would have been awful because there'd been 6 of us just arguing over who gets a Zoom call next and stuff. So yeah, ended up staying there. And then I went home to my family for a bit, and then been just back and forth from London and home, doing whatever bits I can really since then.
So I think that ties quite nicely into the artist advice that we have for this week, because we're talking about things that we got up to during this period when we were unable to do what we normally do creatively. And the advice comes from an actor and musician, Tom Glencarney. As an actor, Tom performed in huge films such as Dunkirk, Tolkien, and on stage in The Ferryman on the West End and Broadway. Like you, he's also a musician and fronts the band Sleepwalking Animals. You can find Tom's top tip on our Instagram page in full, but part of his advice is don't take your foot off the gas. Positive visualization may seem facile and twee, but I swear by this method of furthering ourselves. Also find other ways to be creative when your number one takes a holiday. As a wise woman used to say to me, what's for you won't pass you. Myred, how did you keep creative during lockdown when you couldn't do your main thing, which was at the time performing on stage?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I had a few things that I'd been thinking about before lockdown that I'd always wanted to do. Like I'd always wanted to learn how to produce music. So I think I had a few things in the back of my mind that I'd been telling myself I need to do that at some point. And then actually having the time to do that was quite nice without any time pressure or deadline. I learned how to use like music production software. I kept myself busy, like went for a lot of walks, didn't put too much pressure on myself. But there was always that drive and inspiration in the back of my head. Like whenever I listen to a song that I really like, I always think, right, I need to go and like write a song now. And that's kind of, it's not that much of a healthy thing to think. You always put the pressure on yourself to do something and you compare yourself. And I think with like lockdown and stuff, social media was really bad for that. But actually having no like deadline or time pressure was actually something that really benefited me, I think, creatively.
So were you able then, do you think, from having this time to create some really good work? Did you write some new music?
I did, yeah. The thing I kept in my head was that I should write songs for myself and try not to think, oh, I need to get this out there as soon as possible. And so actually I've took a step back and tried to think maybe I should try and spend more time on these songs and like actually be 100% happy with them before I just put them on an Instagram video out there just, to get some more views. It was more like of a personal thing. But yeah, I've definitely written quite a few songs and I've not finished them all, but I'm getting there with them. And I've had the chance to collaborate with a few people as well, virtually obviously, but that's been really nice as well. Like friends that I've kind of haven't seen for ages. We just thought, should we just do a duet? Everyone's doing them now, so we may as well do one. And that was nice as well, just to like reconnect with people.
I think a lot of people definitely improved their video editing and their audio syncing skills for videos like the one you just mentioned. But I think it was really important that you just said you started to make music which was really for you, because, art has got to be really internal sometimes. It's got to be important for the person that's making it.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of emerging artists, I can imagine to progress their career, there's a lot of feelings that you've got to create this music and get it out there as soon as possible, because that's a way that will further your career. But I think this time, like you just said, has allowed people to slow things down a little bit and really look at the processes behind making the work they make.
Definitely, that's so true. It's definitely something I've taken from this year. And actually, when you were reading that top tip, I was like, oh my God, that rings so true with me. So yeah, thanks for that.
But one thing that you did do quite a lot of during lockdown was you performed lots of collaborative videos and performances with something called Welsh of the West End.
Yeah, my friend Stefan set that up. I went to school with him, so it was nice to reconnect with him and a couple of people that I knew. But actually I didn't know everyone from those videos before them. So it was actually really nice to like get to know people through something I enjoyed, and we just got like loads of views. None of us expected it. I think it was just that, the beginning of lockdown prime time for like sharing those viral videos. But it's just something that's carried on, and obviously I've met new people from it, and yeah, it's been really nice.
That's great. So it wasn't a collective or anything beforehand, but now when you all return to London and start performing again, you've got a little network and a support bubble that will be there waiting for you, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really thankful for that because hopefully, over the next year or so, we'll actually be able to meet each other in person and maybe do something live. I don't know. Like, that is one of my goals for the next year or so. I just want to do a Welsh of the West End live gig. That'd be amazing.
So you've just taken organising that upon yourself now.
Yeah, I know.
You regret saying that. But also, after quite a long time away from Les Mis, you actually got the chance to perform on Britain's Got Talent, didn't you? How did that feel, meeting up with the cast after so long away?
I did. Oh my God. Oh, it was the weirdest day ever. We all got tested in the morning and had to wait an hour and a half for our results. So we all stayed well apart in the auditorium and had seats with our names on them. And we got to sing One Day More. And it was crazy because it was the first time I'd been in a room with live singing and seen everyone. And yeah, it was a very emotional day. And then obviously doing it on telly and stuff as well was just an added excitement. So yeah.
There wasn't a live audience, was there?
No, there was, the judges were there, but we had there was a screen with loads of pictures of people watching. Yeah, it's very weird, very weird.
That must feel insane performing. That normally comes at the end of act one of the show, doesn't it, I think? And it's such a climatic moment where all these different melodies and songs that we've already heard come together.
Yeah.
And it must get such an incredible response from a live audience. To
Yeah.
then perform that live and not get that reaction must have been a weird insight in what's to
Yeah.
come in terms of the new normal that everyone's talking about.
Yeah, you're right. It was really weird. But there was such an adrenaline rush from singing with other people again that I didn't really think about that. The applause and stuff wasn't something I was waiting for. It was more oh my God, we actually just sung live. And it was actually 3 casts as well. It was Mary Poppins, Phantom of the Opera cast as well. And so it was singing with new people as well, which was just an added layer of oh my God, what's going on?
We'll be listening to the podcast in a few weeks when it gets aired, but it's just been announced today that theatres will be closing from tomorrow in London on the West End. Have you managed to get to a theatre since they've been open recently?
I haven't actually. I'm back in Wales at the moment. The Les Mis concert was open until now from the start of December, but I wasn't part of that because I think they had to choose between 3 casts and it was a concert version rather than our staged version of the show. I haven't been able to go back. I was gutted. I was so excited to go and watch it. And yeah, it's just very sudden news, but yeah, who knows?
I managed to squeeze in 2 performances last week. I went to watch my friend in a show called Pirates of Penzance on the West End.
Is that Claude Michel as well? No, am I wrong?
Oh, I think it's a really old Gilbert and Sullivan.
Oh yeah. Another one.
I felt just as safe sat in a theatre, socially distanced, than I have in a shop or on the bus or public transport.
Yeah.
Because it's the same for gigs, really, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I agree because I was in a theatre in August. It was more like a youth workshop thing that we were doing. But because there were rules in place to keep everyone safe and apart, it felt really safe and it felt totally... I started to get used to it. And then you go to a shop and, someone doesn't wear a mask or whatever. And you're kind of just it's quite frustrating because you know that if people wanted to go and watch a show, they would stick to the rules. They would, wear a mask and stay apart because otherwise they wouldn't bother buying a ticket. So it's quite weird when you think about comparing it to, going to the pub and then, yeah. So I get you completely. I did feel safe doing the workshops and stuff because there were rules in place. But yeah.
Have you got any gigs lined up?
Have I got any gigs? I've done a couple of pre-recording stuff.
Right.
They're going to go out as live streams. Have I got anything else coming? I do have some stuff coming up, but I think they might be cancelled now. I did have a little Christmas thing, and I've got something maybe coming up in April for a week. But I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say yet, so I'll leave that for now.
Well, you keep that under wraps and we look forward to the announcement. I really hope that you can get back to being able to perform because you've got this new material out that I bet you just want to share with so many people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a way of promoting it as well, isn't it? There's nothing better than getting some live feedback as well. It's not quite the same, the comments on social media. As nice as they are, it's just really want to get out there now and just perform again.
So let's talk about your journey so far, because this is something that I'm interested in for all of my guests that I've had on the podcast, as to the route that they've taken to get to what they're doing now. So am I right in thinking that you're from quite a small village in Wales?
Yeah, I'm from a place called Llanefydd. I don't actually have any direct neighbours. You have to like walk probably like half a mile or a mile to get to the next house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, in the middle of nowhere, basically.
So what opportunities then were available to you to be creative and make music when you were younger?
So in primary school, in Welsh language primary schools, there's an annual like festival basically, and it's like a series of competitions. So when you're in primary school, you basically, well, definitely the one I was in, you get brought up in choirs and like you get put in duets and stuff, and it's not like a horrible competitive vibe. It's like a healthy, like you go against other schools in your county, and then like whoever wins that round, they then do like a national thing.
Okay.
So it's really, yeah, it's kind of like ingrained in the culture, I guess.
Is this the Eisteddfod?
Yeah. I didn't even name it. Sorry. It's the Eisteddfod. Yeah, there's two main ones. So there's Eisteddfod yr Urdd, which is like an inter-schools one, and then there's one which usually takes place in August, and that's the national one, and you don't have to go like through school to do that one. But yeah, there was categories like folk songs and instrumental like performances and poetry and like reciting and all sorts of different stuff. So that was like there, very present when I was growing up in Wales and stuff. And then when I got to secondary school, they had quite a good music department, and they had like musicals on every year. And then we formed a band. I joined a Welsh rock band.
Oh, cool.
With my boyfriend, yeah. And then that was like GCSE years, and we did an album, a Welsh language like rock pop album.
Oh, amazing. And this is at about 16 years old?
Yeah. That was me trying to be a rock singer. And then we did a competition through the radio, the national radio, and we won. So then we got to record a song, and like things just kind of kept falling into place with that side of things. So I'd already had the experience of being in a band before going to university, which then gave me maybe a bit more of a platform to try and like form some sort of ensemble or that kind of thing while I was at Leeds. So yeah, that's me.
You talked about doing the Eisteddfod competition when you were younger, but am I right in thinking that you did it again a few years ago and won?
Yeah, there's an international Eisteddfod, which is really cool, in Llangollen, and there's one category which is voice of musical theatre, and I won that in 2018, I think it was, and the prize was actually you got a free trip to Australia.
Incredible! Wow.
I know, it was honestly one of the best things I've ever done. So me and my mum went to Australia. We only went for a week, bearing in mind it's like a 24-hour journey.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of my masters, and I got to perform. They have an Eisteddfod there in the Gold Coast, so I got to perform 3 songs in their concert. And that was just amazing, knowing that there was another Eisteddfod out there, and just getting to see a bit of Australia as well. It's cool.
What incredible connections as well, to be able to win a competition which is quite local to you, or something that is based in Wales, and that you've been brought up on that kind of environment, and then to be taken halfway across the world because you've won that competition must have felt unreal at the time.
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. And I'd also just started at the Royal Academy of Music. I did my master's in musical theatre there. And so I'd only started getting to know all these people on my course, and I had to leave for a week. They were like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I'm just like popping to Australia. I'll be back in a week." And then I like didn't rest after the plane journey. I just went back into like normal routine when I was back. And that week I was like, why do I keep crying? And then I thought like, oh, I've got jet lag, I think. So yeah, it was surreal, but it was really cool.
I bet your course mates must have been thinking after 1 week, who is this that's being flown to Australia?
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the decision that you made to go to Royal Academy of Music to study musical theatre, because when we were at Leeds, you were very, very much someone that performed so many different genres. You were the lead singer of the university big band for some years. You also did lots of stuff within the music department, and then you kind of were in and out of musical productions, weren't you? You didn't do every single show that I was in, but you kind of did a select few. So you were always doing these very different genres and keeping your voice going in different ways, I suppose. at what point did you think, right, I want to think about my next steps and whether musical theatre's the right way to go?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I love all kinds of music. So I love singing like rock and jazz and everything. So I'm quite indecisive with what I want to do. So a lot of people, I think a lot of people that went to Leeds did a year in industry or a year abroad.
Yeah.
And I chose not to do that because I just wasn't sure. And it then forced me to like think, right, I need another like secure next step. So it was actually in this stead what I performed She Used to Be Mine from Waitress. And I thought,
Brilliant song.
yeah, it's such a good song. I love Sarah Bareilles as well. But I just, in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is the kind of singing that I want to like explore and, have a bit more training in acting and learn a bit more about characterization and stuff. So then I just went to apply and then got an audition and it all went from there, really.
That's incredible that, well, you went to somewhere like the Royal Academy of Music, which is just so well regarded within music education. And yeah, I think it was really nice to get to see you performing all those different styles at university as well. I think that's something that a lot of people are probably jealous of.
Oh,
Because,
God.
no, but being able to have a voice which lends itself to so many different
Oh,
genres is something really special in my opinion
thanks.
anyway. So as we start to reach the end of our conversation, I'm going to give you a chance to give a little shout out to some of the people or the places that have helped you on your journey so far.
Oh, so my cousin and friend Branwen, who runs Eaching Records, literally helps me with everything, like any advice I need and any like promotion or just a general chat. She's always there, and she's honestly done so much to promote my album and stuff. So I'll give a shout out to her. And also, like, I don't have a specific place that I always refer to, so I'm just going to give a shout out to my mum and dad because they support me loads. That's it.
No, that's fine. I mean, we've talked about a lot of the different places and the organisations and the
Mm.
festivals and things that you've been involved in anyway. But thank you, honestly, thank you
Mm.
so much. I'm glad that we've been able to kind of get this conversation in because I know how busy your schedule
Oh
is
God.
normally when you're not performing or making music. So let's give the listeners one more
Mhm.
track before we end the conversation. What are we going to listen to see us out?
So this song is called Over Again, and I actually wrote it a couple of years ago, but it's actually more like the message of it is more relevant than ever. I think it's like keeping in touch with friends from past and present, and that's really like rung true this year. So this is Over Again from my debut album, Drefn.
Haven't been back for a while. Still we find ourselves reasons to smile. We stop knowing each other, but that's to suggest that the ones we let go are the best. Over, over again. Over and over again. Over and over No one will know me too well, except the songs I have written myself. And when I have to leave, I'll just take off my ring, 'cause I'll always have my songs to sing.
That was Mared with her track Over Again. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. It was fascinating hearing about Mared's inspirations and what's led her to pursue a career as both a singer-songwriter and a musical theatre performer. Don't forget to follow us on social media. at startsandgrafts on Twitter and Instagram. I've been your host, Connor. Ella's been your producer. Please join us again next week. But until then, take care.